Well, welcome everybody. We're going to call this meeting to order at 5:30. And welcome back to Dr. Mo, Dr. Sarata. And so we're getting down to the wire. So today we're going to review the maps that we didn't review last time and go over the ones that we rolled over to today. And we're hoping to cut these options or cut the options down to 2 or 3 maps to take to the roadshow beginning tomorrow. We're gonna cut down to 2 or 3 maps. Right now we have 6. Okay, so let's get started with reviewing the data and maps. And let's start with Mr. Bueno. Did you want to review both your versions or just the latest one? Tell us.
I would like for the committee to disregard my first draft, also known as Plan 4, and I would like to discuss Plan 7 at this time.
Okay, you have the floor.
Okay, so I did take into consideration the comments that had been made 2 weeks prior, where 2 board members were at risk of being switched districts. That has been addressed. And as mentioned, this includes an overall deviation of 4.55%. And in comparison to the other maps, districts 1, 2, 3, 4, they're basically the same. It just comes down to districts 5, 6, and 7 as to how this committee wants to present it to the public. But again, this is just another option for the committee's consideration. And I would welcome any questions if any other committee members or staff have them.
Okay, so to be clear, you have switched just 5 and 6?
5, 6, and
And
7. And that's to place the Board of Trustees members 6 and 7 back into their original districts.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Bueno? These maps aren't in today's folder. These maps are in last week's folder. Right.
So do you have the deviation on it? Do you not know?
It's the deviation is at a 4.55%.
So, Mr. Bueno, basically on your map here, we are really, when you look at the original map,
Of course.
we really are moving District 6 and District 7, right?
Yes, that's where the main action is with this proposal. And it just comes down to the population change. If we were to more or less try and keep the districts the same, it would have thrown the deviation way past the 10% threshold. So that's why changes had to be made.
Right, no, I mean, I'm just looking at the actual area, and District 6 is really moved more to the east instead of where it used to be centralized. It's more to the east now,
Yes.
okay?
And just to be clear, if we look here, we still have in this version of the map, the trustee for District 7 is moved into 6, and the trustee for District 6 is moved into 7. So they're still, at least the way it is right now, switched.
I think at this time, I would really love to go back into what was submitted because I don't think, or maybe it was my error when I submitted the link because I had switched them back to their original places.
Okay. Do you want to, we can just try to do that right now so that if you remember the changes that you made?
If I can see the precinct numbers.
Yes.
So then it's not like what we have printed.
And I do apologize, it was probably me sending the wrong link to one of my drafts. If for precincts number 0126, the incumbent for District 6, yes, if we could switch her back to her original district, District
6?
6. Mm-hmm.
But you're not moving 191, are you?
No, just a 0126, unless it's needed to make it contiguous. Yeah, I believe it's needed to make it contiguous. And then if we could switch, precinct 0202, where the incumbent for district, with her, I'm always having a hard time, I forget if she's in 0202 or the one adjacent to it. But the one that she's in, if we can switch her back to
It's
district.
202, it's 202.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, can you expand it back? And then this one, I believe, District 6 is where she is currently, and the District 7 is where she is currently, I believe, right? Okay. So as you can see here, the deviation even went down to 3.51%. And of course, again.
Moving the incumbent from 5 to 6?
No, so with what was submitted to the committee, the swap hadn't been corrected. I'm placing them back into their original districts with this change.
Was that the only change that you had made from the original one?
Essentially, yes. But my intent, again, part of the comments that I had received 2 weeks ago was that we wanted to keep the incumbents in their districts.
In their original
Yeah,
district?
and I apologize, I probably sent the wrong link to my drafts. But again, this one just fixed it right here, right now, and the deviation even went down to 3.51%.
126 and 202? 126 and 202?
126 and 191 in order to keep the area contiguous. And then, of course, 0202 to District 7.
Any other questions for Mr. Bueno? Go ahead, Mr.
I
Bueno.
don't think I know any, there's no split precincts or anything.
From Dave's redistricting, there was no split precincts, but the thing is that when I see it in what was rendered back, I kind of see what looks like split precincts. Is there split? Was there
Looks like
splits done here for
199.
this rendering?
Which one?
131.
Because what I submitted didn't include any splits.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
For this track here, when it was converted into this system, were there any districts that were split
Any precincts?
in any of the precincts?
Split precincts?
You know, there are none in this,
Okay.
I think that's right, I'm not sure, I gotta check that.
Yeah, what I submitted didn't include any split precincts. I just wanted to make sure.
It is signed.
199.
Okay. So to answer your question, committee member, there's supposed to be no split precincts on this rendering.
But in my copy, I see, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was referencing, but she's assuring us that it was not.
And this is also not the updated copy.
That's what I thought. Okay. Thank you.
So, I have a question, Mr. Bueno.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
on precinct 30.
If you could just tell me which side of the county
It's
towards.
in District 1. It's the little tail that goes into District 4, for lack of a better term.
Yes.
So I was wondering, like, why is that one still in District 1? Is that just for population?
I do apologize, let me pull up my phone. Yes, and it came down to this area. Of course, we had previously discussed it as, it can be considered sometimes central, sometimes west side, sometimes there's a preference to it. For the purpose of, being fair in terms of the population allocated to the districts, that's what I made the determination that it is more of a community of interest towards the west side. Of course, opinions differ, but this basically is what would keep, the precinct's population in, kind of in
Balance.
order, yeah, in
Okay.
balance.
What is that neighborhood? Could we, no, does anyone know?
30.
30? Is that still Sunset Heights?
I think it's more like, right above.
It's a little bit
UTEP.
much more further north than,
In
UTEP.
Sunset Heights?
UTEP, it's a little bit higher than UTEP
It's
and,
higher than
Mhm.
like,
Oh, some apart.
there's some apartments there, a lot of apartments.
Isn't that like Smelter Town?
That could be. around
It's a
the
little
smelter.
bit towards that area.
Yeah, I would tend to think
It
that
might
that's
be.
more central than it is west.
Could we,
Yeah.
Mr. Sequest?
34 probably might be Smelter Town, and that's just right above it.
I think 35 is Sunset Heights, right?
No, 35 is, that is more like Kern.
Yeah,
Can we-
Sunset Heights is like 40, isn't it?
Because, let's see,
I don't
Can
know
we-
very much, so.
so now 37 is like Segunda, and then downtown, and then Sunset Heights. Can you tell us what neighborhood, precinct 30 is? Which is gonna be in District 1 in this version of the map, I think? Mhm. Or if we could look at the streets on precinct 30.
Yeah, let me turn these off and I don't get to the same. Okay, what number again? I'm sorry.
30?
30?
It's gonna be on the west side of the map.
More to your left,
The other
yeah.
way, to
Yeah,
your
up
left.
to the left. And there you go.
There we go.
Purple, purple corner.
The little bubble looking one, right above that.
Right here?
Mm-hmm.
If you could zoom in.
That does look like it's Baisano, right?
So, oh, so that's like where Artavino's Desert Crossing is. Just easy to
That's Buena Vista.
Okay.
Smelter.
Okay.
Smelter.
Okay.
The 7
You know
times.
your city?
Mm-hmm.
I've only been there 7 times.
Yeah, so, to me, Buena Vista is more with the central than it is with the
Yeah.
west side.
I think that you have like a very different neighborhood than what continues to go west in Buena Vista.
Mhm. Again, these are concessions that I was proposing to make, but of course I would welcome comments. And if you guys would like to, we can make changes IRL and see how that would affect it, if you would like. For precinct 30, the only one that it could go with technically would be District 4 in the, for continuity. If we could switch precinct 30 to District 4, please.
You can't, oh, yeah, that's right, 4, that is 4, yeah.
See if the change is not too bad. District 4. Didn't change much with the deviation, but if we were to switch this district to District 4, the deviation is at 3.81. And it would be a member of District 4.
3.81. Does anyone want to see any other parts of the map? Do you want to zoom out and look at the whole thing?
Was the population okay?
It's a deviation of
I don't think the
3.81.
population changed much because there's not very many people that live there.
It's a small precinct.
No, you got a good
So how many,
deviation.
how much
Yeah.
population does it have to be more than that for?
Would we be able, oh, actually, we can see it, see the,
126.
yeah.
126.
We can see the populations right there.
On 126, yeah.
Yeah, on the side.
will be 126 on that one there.
Mhm. It'll be on the, yeah,
But we're still under the, way under the 10%.
yeah.
Anybody?
I'll just say Sherry and I were talking while you all were looking at that. There may be a couple, in fact, there are a couple of spots on the map where the voter tabulation districts don't quite line up to the new precincts.
Right.
So that's what makes it look like there are some splits. So we'll have to do some kind of minor corrections to tweak that,
Okay.
but it shouldn't have much of an effect on the overall map.
Okay, perfect. One of my goals was also not to split precincts.
Yeah, and it's pretty close, and it's not your fault. It's just the way the map lines up with the new voter precinct. So
That's fine.
that's something that we can fix for you.
That's okay. 71, 31, and, one more times a block.
So pretty small areas shouldn't affect
So,
it.
and I'll need to do that, I think those are the two, that's all.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on this map? No? Okay, do we want to take this one with us tomorrow? Can I get a motion? Okay,
Second.
all in favor? Okay,
Great.
so this one's gonna move on to the roadshow. Thank you, Mr. Bueno.
And thank you for the committee for your input. I really value it.
And just to be clear, it's moving with the version of the 381 and the change in precinct 30?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, we're gonna take it just like it is on the screen right now.
cool.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so then the next ones we need to narrow down are Mr. Ibarra's version 6 and then A and B as well. And there is a map with all three of them, which is really helpful. So I would suggest to the committee that we move one of these because they're so similar, minus like the only changes are, we're talking our 3 precincts, right? So I would suggest we select one for the roadshow.
Is the map that we're looking at is on the, in the
It's
folder for this?
From today.
For today?
And there's one that has all 3, so you can see the changes side by side, but then they're also in individual packets.
Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Ibarra, is there anything you'd like to say, any comments, any explanations? Your thoughts?
No, I mean, basically, I do like that they did give us the maps where you can see them all together. And, the one with the lowest deviation, of course, is gonna be the very first one, 6. But it does have that little, that sticks out there, 120 sticks out. And, I don't remember whether 6A or 6B has the highest deviation.
Can we have the deviations for the different versions, please?
So 6A has a deviation of 6.79%. And 6B
Probably a 5.
Like something.
yeah, it's in the 5s. It's a little less. It's, sorry, my chart is hiding in my packet here. 6B is 5.27. So, yes, 6.79 for 6A, and then 5.27 for 6B.
And the 6 was 1.74?
I believe that's correct.
I'm sorry.
6A,
1.7446.
6, I believe that's what it is.
6A is 6.79.
1.746. My recommendation would be that we just go with 6, but that's just the lowest, I'm going with the lowest.
So, last week we looked at what the border of that little area, is the northern border of that little area, is, and so that in 6A, precinct 121 would be south of Mount Wood Drive, and it's like the only neighborhood or precinct that would be south of Mount Wood Drive. So I like 6B better because it keeps those neighborhoods south of Mount Wood all together, and it's still continuous. So it seems like out of these two, we have a plug for 6, one for 6B. Does anyone like 6A?
I do. I like
It's like
it
six A.
because it
Okay.
keeps it all contiguous. 18, 19, 20, and 21 are all together. With
Cool.
part of 5. It makes it a bit more contiguous.
Is your, his original plan was the draft plan 6?
6.
6,
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I like the original plan.
Original plan, Mr.
Because-
Bono?
For, I would have to share the same sentiment as Ms. Acosta. My concern with the other ones is that it's only, 2 precincts keeping, you know, everything continuous. With 6A, it's at least 4 precincts bridging the community or the districts together. I understand that this is the one with the higher deviation, but nevertheless, it's within, standards, and I would go with this one.
So by my count, we have 2 for 6, 2 for 6A, 1 for 6B,
We're going 6A.
6A?
The,
Okay.
what is this?
Do we want to take a vote? Or does anyone have any questions? Does anyone want to see anything on the map? Mr.
Actually,
Go
I
ahead.
have a question. So other than it being continuous, what would be kind of the irregularities with draft plan 6 and the 121 area?
It's a precinct 120 that the one that sticks out, it just sticks out into, that's the only thing that's, and that was done so that we could bring down the deviation. That's why it was done.
Yeah, I like that one. I think 6 personally is, I mean, it has the lowest deviation and long-term wise, I mean, it won't grow too much.
Okay, thank you.
331.
So it looks like we're
Somebody
looking
hasn't
at
voted.
6 and 6A. Yes, ma'am.
So there's 3 and 6 for 6, and then 3 for 6A.
Wesley?
And you had 1 for 6B?
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Who had 6B?
You gotta go with 6.
Yes,
I
one
just,
for 6B.
I'm moving toward it because it's a lower deviation.
Does anyone want to look at anything else on the map? Does anyone want to make a motion?
Well, I would move that we accept 6.
I second.
I would move that we accept 6 for the roadshow.
All in favor of draft 6 for the roadshow? Can we have the hands up, please, for draft 6?
We're gonna have more than 1, right?
4.
Oh, we're gonna have one, 3.
We're gonna, so we have 4, and then 1, 2,
Oh, okay.
3, 4. So we're at a,
6, I think we'll get 2, how many versions you said? 3?
so no, so like, we're gonna take 2 or 3 versions on the roadshow, but I would suggest that we take one of these.
Oh, one of them.
Because there's just a matter of 3 precincts, 2 precincts that we're talking about, and to me, it doesn't make sense to take more than one of these. So I'm gonna call for the vote again. All in favor of draft plan 6, which is the original, please raise your hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Yeah. Okay, so that one didn't pass. All in favor of draft plan 6A?
With the deciders.
Okay, so there's 3. And so,
Motion
guess-
fails too.
yeah, so either way, we would be tied, right? So like if I voted for
Right.
6,
So why can't we take both of these?
we can, but I think that would
Well,
be,
there is, because of 120 and 120, because you have the 120 that
That's the
kind
only
of
thing
like,
difference, yeah.
that's a difference. The
Uh-huh.
120 is kind of like just stuck in there. And over here, it's not, it's part of 5. So I think these two will make a difference. They're significantly different because you have 120 sticking out over here.
I think when
I
we're
think-
talking about overall, there's not a significant difference, right? Like, these are the
They're
exact
not-
same
they're
maps
not, but
version.
except
too.
for that one that
So-
makes it more contiguous.
So
Sherman.
hang on one second. So my suggestion is that we don't take two maps that are exactly the same minus two precincts. That
But
this
it
is
makes-
something we can, figure out here. Go ahead, Mr. Bueno.
I guess perhaps, since we're coming a little bit out of an impasse, I would suggest that we would take draft plan 6 and 6A, and we can gather more input from public, and, you know, if anybody decides to change their mind then, unless anybody's willing to change their mind now.
I'll vote for 6A.
6A? Okay. So then let's call it one more time, just to be clear. All in favor of draft plan
6A,
6A?
6A,
yes, 6A.
is that 6A?
6A. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So we still have 4 people, right?
There's 7, 1, 2, 3, 4.
There's 8
There's
of us, so
7.
we need
Oh, for
5.
you it's 8.
So we need 5 votes.
So, if I may be recognized again, since we're coming again at an impasse, I would suggest that we just take these two, once we gather community input, we can gather whether, you know, they value the deviation more, or, you know, they would rather see their communities be more better represented, and then we can decide from there.
Can we, what is the street that is the top of precinct 122, please? Because maybe this will help a little bit.
Which one?
In,
6A.
well, in.
Any of them, really.
Yeah.
Are any of the other members online at all?
Do we have?
Have anybody called in?
I think everybody's here today. Or
We don't have Mr. Guerra on like that.
Nobody's called in.
We don't have a tiebreaker.
Yeah, and check down here.
So the street north on, or the street that runs east to west on 122, precinct 122, the northern border.
Let me see if I can get a.
Bob Mitchell.
A little bit better map on that.
Yeah, there we go, Bob.
Can we come any closer? Are you looking at this boundary here?
Yes.
That's Bob Mitchell.
That's Bob Mitchell.
So it's Shaw, Kleinfield, Bob Mitchell, and Vista del Sol to the south.
So I have a question for those of you that live on the east side or maybe know it a little bit more. Are 120, 122, and 121 more alike than 108, 109, 120?
Well, it's kind of the same community. I mean, they're kind of the same community. But what you're doing with 6A is you're taking out 120. You're just taking it out from 109. There's a gap between 109 and 121 instead of making it contiguous.
What is the street, I'm sorry, I think you bring up a good point. So what is the street between 109 and 120?
That's
George
probably
Theaters.
that's
Okay.
probably South Kleinfeld.
Okay, so I'm ready to change my vote.
We've turned.
Okay, so,
It's George Theater.
So then, if I may, at this time, I would like to move the take to the roadshow draft plan 6A.
6A?
6A.
Okay, all in favor of draft plan 6A? Okay? All in favor of draft plan 6?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So 6 it is.
Now, we're taking them to the roadshow, but that doesn't mean that 6A and 6B are off the table completely, right?
Well, I think it should, right, like whatever we're gonna show to the
Like, they're off
community
the table.
should be our final ones. And then based on whatever feedback we get, we can have another round of comments
Okay.
based on the feedback and then submit our final report.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say, if this is something in particular, this precinct alignment is something that the committee would like some feedback on, I can actually call that out when I
Okay.
address the public and say that, if, you know, if anyone has any particular thoughts about this area, that's something that the committee would be particularly interested in your feedback.
I like
And so
that.
that way,
Okay.
you guys can actually get some feedback on that directly, if anybody has it.
Okay, that sounds good. So we have one more map to consider, and that was Mr. Lawrence's. Could we see the one that moved forward? Which one did we get rid of? So 3, right? It was your map 3 that moved forward?
So, taking a look at
So we have gotten rid of Lawrence too? Okay.
I think it's plan to do whatever. No,
I think it was 3, because 2 was the one that actually paired the candidates, and I think that's the one
so
you
it was
pulled.
3.
Yeah, so 3, please.
Yeah.
Which one are we doing?
So we are looking at Lawrence 3. And how many, oops, I'm sorry. How many split precincts does it have? 9?
Is it the one with the split pieces?
Mhm.
Yes, so
Yes.
this one has 9 split precincts. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Lawrence on his map? Or would anyone like to see something closer on the big map?
If I may. The split precincts from 2 weeks ago, did they change or where they stay? Did they stay
It's
the
the same
same?
map as presented 2 weeks ago.
So I'm going to make a suggestion, and, you know, we can have discussion on it before we take any action. Since we have 2 versions of the maps without split precincts that work well for the college districts, I would suggest that we take just those 2 maps and eliminate this one because of the 9 split precincts, but it's open to discussion. And I think that after the roadshow, we can come back with the 2 maps that we present and make our final changes based on public feedback, and then submit a recommendation to the committee, or decide to submit both of whatever our final versions are to the board, and then they can decide. If
Okay,
that's
so
a suggestion.
on your draft, Lawrence, you moved 6 out of central. And you moved it on to the east. Is that right? I think you had told me that you had made something. Like the initial one, that's 6 in the middle,
Correct.
and then you made 6 over here.
Yeah, the same one, so they're not big.
Looking at the initial. So the initial has 6 here in the middle, and this one has 6 over here. So you move 6 to the east,
Correct.
and that's what you meant to do.
Correct, and basically what I did was try to be as fair to the population as possible, making sure the numbers were as close In doing so, obviously, I had to split a couple precincts to do that. Also, to get the deviation as low as humanly possible, without gerrymandering. And that was the thing. I believe maps should have low deviations, the population should be as close as possible. Working with 7 districts makes that a little hard, but that's where it's at.
And the deviation on this one is what?
0.85.
What's that?
0.85.
And we have 9 split precincts.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
I would actually suggest that we actually take this onto the roadshow also, simply because to emphasize that in order to get a real low deviation, we would have to split some precincts, and this is what it would look like. You know, and so then these other ones don't have any split precincts, that's what that looks like. So that way, we give the people an opportunity to say, hey, you know, that's okay, or we don't like that. Because, you know, this one here has the lowest deviation period. But
Right, but we're
it came
splitting
because of the splits.
Right, so, yeah, so I disagree because of the splits, but we can put it to a vote.
So which map are we gonna take, Lawrence 3?
So we're
We're talking about
looking
number
at this
3, yeah.
map,
Number 3?
number 3.
Yeah.
Uh-huh, and so we're deciding to move it or not, to bring it with us to the roadshow tomorrow, or to eliminate it.
Well, I think George brings up a good point.
Okay.
I mean, you show low deviation, but it's gonna create split precincts.
I guess in a sense, it could be used to educate, the public. And at the end of the day, I don't wanna say we bid to the people, but, it's important for them to see, you know, like, okay, you want the lowest possible deviation, this is the stuff that we would have to do, split precincts. For educational purposes, I would move it forward.
I agree, as long as we explain what deviation means, and at the expense of deviation, low deviation is what we're gonna get though. So as long as people really understand, because I don't think a lot of people really will understand this
Yeah.
in general.
Don't cut me off.
Okay. Just tell me where to go vote, I guess.
Let me ask you guys, for the presentation, do the authors of the map have any interest in speaking about them, or do you want me to just kind of give them an introduction so it's coming from the committee as a whole and not any individual in particular? Because I can do it either way.
I would tend to think that it would be more consistent to just have you decide, or
Okay.
you do it.
Explain all of it.
Because in case, for some reason or other, we're not able to make it, at least the presentation will be consistent.
Okay, then I will plan on doing that. Do you have the specific precincts that are split, just so I have a list of them?
It's 35, 65, 99, 104, 110, 119, 123, 182, and 203.
And Wesley,
I'm sorry for interrupting.
You're fine, you're fine.
Wesley, on 35, that you split that precinct, and we're making sure that Christina Sanchez is still in her precinct, in her district?
Yes, all the incumbents are still in their districts.
So I think it, to me, so this is my opinion, and we can take it with us, right? Like we can put it to a vote. I think it's confusing, like the process can be confusing, and it's a lot to learn in one night. Like we've been doing this for a few weeks, and some of us have done this with other bodies, and it's still very confusing, right? So I think that it would be really confusing to present maps emphasizing deviation when we have that 10% that is allowed. I think that, to me, is more confusing than just trying to have because this isn't about educating just solely on the process of deviation, right? It's about fair maps, and that includes a lot of other things. So to me, I would think that it would be more confusing to present a map with 9 split precincts to talk extensively about deviation versus other components that go into fair maps. But that's just my suggestion. So are there other questions or discussions?
I completely agree with that, with your opinion. Since, we don't have to spend a lot more time explaining to the public, of the split precincts. and just present them what is probably our best option.
Right. Okay, go ahead,
In
Mr.
your,
Ledma.
with your experience, did you do a roadshow? And did you, would this be a good idea? Again, or are you talking from experience and maybe you looked at free people?
So when the city did their roadshow, we had a lot of maps. Like, we had maybe like 20 or something. Like, we had a lot of maps, and they didn't get printed, right? And at every roadshow but one, the commissioners didn't speak or cheer a map, except at one roadshow. Staff presented, city staff presented, and they went through all the maps and all the different versions. So there was a lot of emphasis on communities of interest, on natural barriers, right? And then incumbents. There was one who was termed out. So the conversation was about a lot of things that go into fair maps. I think that we have some good options, right? So I don't think that we should get stuck on the deviation, because there are a lot of components that go into fair maps and make it a lecture about deviation or a presentation about deviation. Not that you would completely do that, right? I just think that it's really confusing to stress that when we have that 10% cushion. But that's just me.
So you only wanna take 2 maps?
My suggestion would be to take 2 maps and then get public feedback on those 2 maps, make the changes based on the feedback or whatever else we hear at these road shows, and then make our recommendation to the college.
And I'm sorry, the 2 maps again, forgive me.
Would be Mr. Bueno's that we just edited today, and Mr. Ibarra's original 6,
The original 6, not 6A.
not 6A. But Mr. Sequest would, in that version of the map, ask specifically, like, if, when we're looking at this little section here, what makes most sense to the public?
I think the whole entire purpose of the roadshow at the end of the day was, these are proposals that we're gonna submit to the public. Once we hear those proposals, I highly doubt it, but if for some reason they're like, no, we just don't feel comfortable with the deviation, and the conversation starts focusing there, then we can look into making these changes. But I agree with your sentiments now as well, where we don't wanna make the conversation just about the deviation when we're allowed that cushion.
I would agree too. I mean, it's a good point that George brought up, but I think we gotta make it easy, understandable. I think
Yeah.
it's graspable.
Yeah, and I think accessible, and then to really focus on like what changes are impacting the district that they live in, right? Because that's going to affect them more whether deviation is low or not, right? Like, I'm now voting for a new trustee,
Or they
Or
might
not.
say move.
right? So, can I have, I'll entertain a motion either way. So I don't think I should motion.
I move that we don't include the deviation explanation, or is that the motion, or? the
No, that we
maps?
don't include the map,
Yeah, what?
that we don't include this map.
Oh, that we don't, I'm sorry, that we don't include, yes, we don't include this. I move
Second,
we don't accept Mr. Lawrence's map.
Yeah.
Although, thank you so much for all the work that you've done.
yes, I second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, so then we're not going to move, we won't be taking this one to the roadshow. So the maps that will go to the roadshow are Mr. Bueno's as presented today
Yes.
and edited today, and Mr. Ibarra's original 6. 6 and 7. Okay,
And we will, again, for purposes of the roadshow tomorrow, we will probably relabel those A and B.
Okay.
And I'm sorry for the confusion that will cause in this room, but I promise it will create less confusion for the public. If
Yeah.
they see 6 and 7, they're gonna say, where's
what
1 through
happened,
5?
right?
Yes.
So,
Okay, sounds good. And so we should do Mr. Ibarra's A and Mr. Bueno's B.
yes. But again, I'm just gonna call it Committee A and B.
Committee A.
So it's gonna be the product of everyone.
That sounds really good. Okay, so then, on the topic of the roadshow, so we're gonna move on to the next item. And I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Mo so she can talk to us about the roadshow and the parking pass, which is also in your folder.
Yeah, in your folder, you will find a parking pass. If you just put this on your dashboard, and you can use this for all of them, it's the same. And then inside, and then behind that are also maps of the facilities and the address. If you go to the Redistricting website, you can also actually click on it, and it'll take you to an electronic map. So if you have your mobile device with you, that is even more specific, but we wanted you to have a printout as well.
Thank you.
And are there any questions on the room setup, on anything for that day, or anything that the committee wants to comment on?
Just as a point of clarification, say for example, by accident we forget one and we end up getting a ticket, do you think we could turn it in and get it waived?
Yeah, just bring it to us and we'll take care of that, as long as it's not like a traffic moving violation. If it's just parking, that's, we can help you with that.
Go ahead.
And the ones that are students like me, and they already have parking decal, do we have to put this on the card also, or?
If you have an EPCC parking sticker, then you don't need to use this permit.
All right, thank you.
And it's gonna be parking wherever we find a spot, or is it gonna be designated parking for us?
We'll have some parking saved, but anywhere you see a space, you can park. At the, do you know, at the northwest one, there is also a Conatillo High School football game, so there will probably be increased traffic in the area. And I would encourage you to arrive a little bit early. The game doesn't start till later, but just so the committee has that heads up.
Okay. Thank you.
And then, I wanted to mention, let me see what item. Okay, so other business. There are 2 meetings that I may not make it to, so I wanted to designate someone to represent the committee or to act as chair, co-chair, whatever we want to call it, at those 2 meetings. And since we have maps that we're presenting that commissioners turned in, I wanted to suggest that it be someone who's not the authors of the maps.
What days are those?
So the days are going to be tomorrow, which is the 3rd, and then Saturday, the afternoon one. And this is still like, I might make it, but I'm definitely not gonna be there at the beginning tomorrow.
Tomorrow, Thursday,
Tomorrow, Thursday.
okay?
I would ask the committee, besides myself and my co-author, is there anybody interested perhaps in becoming, shall we call it, a co-chairman of the committee?
And I think that mostly maybe you could just give like a short welcome, and then we're gonna turn it over to Mr. Sequist anyway.
I will try, I'll try and make it tomorrow. I should be downtown then. I'm gonna make
Yeah.
it, I'll try and make it, to Thursday one, tomorrow.
Would
But
you
that's
be
fine,
able,
right?
The Friday one for sure I cannot make,
Okay.
but
Then-
tomorrow I can make it.
Mr. Ladmar, are you available to be there tomorrow for
Tomorrow?
certain?
Commission? Yeah, I'll be there.
Will
Well, I
you
was
be-
planning to be there anyway.
Okay, were you planning to be there on November 5th at 2 p.m., which is a
Yes.
Saturday?
We're flying.
For sure, those 2?
I'll be there.
Yeah.
I'll be there, I'll plan to be there.
Okay.
It's on my calendar.
Then at this time, if I may, I would like to move that Mr. Raul Lerma be co-chairman in the absence of our chairwoman, should the need be.
Okay.
Wait a second.
I'll drink to
Say-
that.
Anybody opposed? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Ledma. Okay, and then, what else? Do we have anything else for other business before we move on to future work sessions?
One of the questions I had was, this is what is displayed right now as far as the colors for the community college. And to me, this stands out easier than the colors that we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can we sort of adopt it this way, or?
We can try to match that, but we're kind of bounded by what the colors the software will use.
Okay,
So we'll do our very best, is what I can
that's
tell you.
fine. I mean, yeah, like I said, this stands out easier than the other ones.
Well, it's a little bit more solid, and ours show a little bit more detail in terms of roads as well as
Right.
precincts. So if you have that real dark color like that, it can make those things hard to see.
Sure.
So that's sort of the trade-off there. But we'll try to use those colors as best we can.
Not a problem, yeah. And we are gonna have that, large enough so that all the population is gonna be on the precincts?
Yes, we have maps with the precincts, with the population in there.
Fantastic.
that'll help.
Okay, any other business? So for future work sessions, we wrap up our roadshow on the 7th, and then we're scheduled to meet on the 9th. Depending on how much community engagement we have and feedback, that may not give staff enough time to bring back that feedback for us to consider. Would the committee be okay moving the December 9th meeting, sorry, the November 9th meeting to the 16th to give staff enough time to work on the feedback? And by that point too, I will have a rough draft of the report that we submit to the committee.
If I may ask, when was the original deadline for this committee to report
So
to
it's
the
the
trustees?
18th. So this is why I'm saying that I will have a draft of the report that we need to submit for us to look at, consider, edit, take the feedback, make our final additions to the map, or do we want to meet on the 9th and 16th? We may not have,
I think perhaps an idea is that on the last roadshow, towards the end of the presentations and the Q&A, we could decide then, you know, like, okay, we've gathered quite a significant amount of feedback. We can have these 2 meetings, or you know what, only one person showed up throughout the whole entire process, we only meet the 18th. I think then we would be able to gauge, unless the committee really wants the 2 meetings.
so I don't think we need the 2 meetings, right? And I think that if not everybody, for whatever reason, comes to the meeting on November 7th, we may not be together again to make that decision. So I think that we should decide today so that folks can plan. And if someone can't make it to one of these meetings, then it's not like a big deal. Like, you're not gonna miss a meeting date.
I will not be here on the, I'm gonna be traveling the 9th through the 16th, so I won't be here.
Okay.
Be here on the 7th, but I won't be here on the 9th.
And we could also meet maybe the 15th, if that's, makes people, if that gives staff enough time. So my suggestion would just be like, if we come here on the 9th and we haven't given staff enough time to bring back the feedback, then we really aren't gonna have much to discuss. So we should wait until staff has enough time to do that. So I mean, I guess even the 14th, 15th, or 16th?
I'm okay with the 18th, just to give staff and yourself enough time to create the report.
The
18th.
So on the 18th, it's due. So
Oh,
you
I'm
don't
sorry,
wanna be
I'm
writing on
confusing
that.
my dates, 16th,
The
yes, 16th.
Is that gonna give you enough time for a report?
So I want to bring a draft with me that day and then make some changes and edits, and then we can, you know, I can
Finalize
review it
it.
one more time, finalize it, and then submit it.
And that's enough time for staff?
Yes.
On the 16th, is that the date we're targeting?
That's the date we're
November
talking
16th?
about,
Mhm.
But we can try the 15th. Look at my other calendar.
I'm all right with either date, 15th or 16th.
I would not be here the 15th. 16th, I can.
16th.
Okay, let's go 16th, that settles
There
it.
you go.
Yes.
There we go.
Easy to do.
16th.
Okay, so then we won't be meeting on November 9th. We'll meet on November 16th.
And for clarification purposes, would that be at 5 or 5:30 p.m.?
What do you all prefer? You can accommodate whatever you would
Well, I mean, we did this one a little later because of the voting. It's gonna be over and done with by that time, so the
So
5 o'clock.
5 p.m.? 5 p.m.
5 on 16th.
Yeah.
Hmm?
So 5 p.m. on November 16th will be the next meeting. Yes? Any questions?
No.
We have the list of the road show, which starts tomorrow. Thank you, everybody.
Clarification, I'm just a little welcome. I'm the welcome, tomorrow night. Welcome, bienvenidos. Maybe introduce the committee. Oh, real quick, the committee there's a designated place for the committee to sit near the front, or like facing the public, at each of the road shows, except for the Trans Mountain one. That one's a little bit smaller.
And tomorrow's at the Mission.
Mission del
El
Paso.
Paso.
Misión del Paso.
Tomorrow at Mission, we're in the Flexitorium, and the way that room is set up, it's a very large space with stadium seating. The podium is in front with the screen, And we have a table and chairs at the very front of the room so the committee can face the public and respond to any questions as necessary. And 3 of the Northwest Valle Verde campuses are all in that same setting. The only 2 that are slightly different will be Trans Mountain and Rio Grande. But we're gonna try to put the committee as close to the front of the podium as possible.
Okay, any other questions?
And just for my own point of clarification, so we'll have staff present the maps and then it's just a open forum Q&A type of deal?
Yeah, what we do is we give everybody an opportunity to come up, and it's really, I mean, we can have Q&A, but really the main goal is to have information flowing to us, so that we get their comments. And so we'll have an opportunity, usually we have a microphone that folks can come up and speak into and just give you their feedback. I like this, I'd like to see some other portion, and then, you know, if there are questions, then we can address those, but typically it's just an opportunity for comments.
And I'm assuming staff will be keeping track of the input, correct?
Yeah, we'll track the input. We'll also have staff there with microphones to pass it around throughout the audience as necessary. We'll have the Spanish language translation as requested, as well as sign language interpretation available as well.
And then these won't be streamed, these will be recorded and then uploaded to the Districting website, right?
Correct.
Are we wanting to give the participants something like a Post-it to ask them to rank the maps or anything like that? You know, go up and put a Post-it on the map that they like?
I'm sorry, say that again?
I was just wondering if we're gonna give the the people who are coming in to give us feedback, like a Post-it that they could put on the map that they like the most, one of the 2.
I think we can try to do that, but keeping that straight may be a little bit challenging.
Okay.
So what we typically do is we just give them the opportunity to comment, and then we take all of that down.
Okay.
And we'll also, we also offer the opportunity, we have comment forms that we can print out so that if people don't want, because some people are real crazy about getting in front of the crowd and talking into a microphone. So we'll have written forms too, if they want to
Okay.
make written comments.
And I also want to say, at least, and those of you that were on, oh, Genta's not here, right? That were on the county districting may have had a different experience, but with the city, the public engagement was fairly low, except for like 2 meetings, so please don't be surprised or discouraged if it's not like 40 people.
And traffic towards Mission Valley is very high. It's very high. The traffic
At that time.
at that hour. So I was driving back from Clinton at 4 and it was like,
Go ahead, Mr.
Now, I was gonna ask Dr. Mo about, has there been any kind of feedback on the website?
We have not had any feedback. I checked at about 4 o'clock today, and we have not had any public comment on the website
Or map submissions.
or map submissions.
So,
And that website, that is in the printed ads that we have purchased. We can see that the maps have been viewed, so that may be a sign that the committee or the public is seeing the maps, but they have not offered comment.
And I believe staff has done everything humanly
You guys done a good
possible
job.
to advertise it.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
It's been very well advertised, thank you. Okay, any other questions, comments, points of clarification? Motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
thank you for all the hospitality, it's been fantastic. Yeah.